Hello everyone, I'm Professor Geek. Welcome back to the channel, and welcome to another archetype video, another villain archetype video. A few days ago I did the first one of these, transitioning from heroes to villains, and I'll probably still go back to heroes eventually, but we're just dealing with some more archetypes and haven't touched on many villains at all actually until the other day's video. So I'll put a link to that in the top corner of the screen there. And in that one I talked about the trickster as a villain. And that's pretty timely right now because of the Joker film coming out. And I talked about how that treatment of the Joker is not a proper treatment of that character for that archetype. And you can go back and listen to that. People are already starting to try and come up with defenses, though, and everything like that. Oh, I don't see a problem with giving him a backstory. Well, I'm going to tell you exactly what the problem is with giving him a backstory in this video. So now you won't have to be so ignorant about it. How's that? When we first started talking about heroes, I said that there are two basic broad categories of superheroes. And I am talking about superheroes here, because when you just say the word hero, that can mean a bunch of different things. You know, hero isn't a Jungian archetype within itself. The hero's journey is obviously a specific thing that we're kind of piggybacking off of. A lot of people call the protagonist of any story the hero of that story, but we're talking about superheroes in particular. And this is the American mythology that's developed and evolved around comic books and superheroes. So according to the superheroes, I said that you had two basic categories. You've got the aspirational, and there needs to be comparatively few of them, but they're desperately important to have them. If you have too many, the mythology will seem thin, but you desperately need some of them, and it's a tragedy when people try to deconstruct the precious few that we have. And the aspirational ones are the ones who have said they don't need to suffer any kind of trauma or make any mistakes or moral failings. They're just good from the start. They just want to do the right thing from the start. Then you had the majority of heroes who fall into the cathartic motivational type, and the cathartic because they're helping us. They're reflecting back a lot of the failings and traumas and experiences that we have to go through, that we have to suffer through, but they don't stop at catharsis, or else they wouldn't be heroes. They wouldn't be superheroes. They would be just protagonists. Hamlet is a cathartic hero. You don't want to be Hamlet at all. You don't want to aspire to that. But the cathartic motivationals go on to motivate us to overcome the moral failings or the tragedies in life or whatever that come upon us. So those are the two basic hero types: aspirational and cathartic motivational. The villains have two basic hero types, two basic villain types as well, that are similar in terms of their allotment of you know, how ubiquitous they are. And the villain two basic types, and you'll have sub-archetypes within these, but the two basic types of villains are the elemental and the fallen. And they both do different things for us in society, just like with the heroes. The aspirational hero, for example, gives us something to aspire to. If we don't have that, then there's nothing for the cathartic motivational in us to work toward. You know, so you need both of those. And it's the same way with the villains. We have the elemental and the fallen. The elemental villain is probably best understood if you think of it a little bit on the nose, but in terms of like the devil, or some sort of interdimensional, you know, evil being, or a demon, or some sort of alien race that's just simply predatory, you know, you know, Pennywise the Clown, that's an elemental villain. It's just pure, it's the essence of evil. There's, you know, there can be rational thought in terms of how to accomplish the evil, but there's no, you know, there's no sense of right and wrong. There's just absolute evil. There's no misunderstanding with the elemental villain. There's no, you know, tragedy that the elemental villain had to go through to become, at least not so much, you know, that's known anyway. So we talked about, you know, I mentioned, you know, forces like a demon or an alien or a predator monster or something like that. But you can have human villains become these elemental forces of evil. You can't see the becoming, though. And this is why it's a mistake to give the Joker a backstory. That's only part of the problem with the movie's treatment. The real problem I'll get to in a second. But if you see the process of them becoming the elemental villain, you can never really truly see them as the elemental villain. Like, we can accept that the Joker, a human being, is an elemental force of evil, and at the same time accept that he had some sort of bad day, right? His bad day is one bad day. But we can only do that because we never exactly know what that bad day is. The Killing Joke was really great about that because it only gave him, one example, or we got one of the stories he would tell people. So that's what worked about that. You can't see them become the elemental villain, because then whatever villainy that they go out and achieve, you're not going to see it as just pure evil, pure elemental evil. You're going to see that as the product of whatever tragic thing they went through, or whatever corruption they fell into, and whatever dark path they went down. You're not going to see them as elemental. You're going to see them as the fallen, which is the second type. The fallen is easy to understand. These are people who is sort of like a cathartic motivational hero, but they didn't overcome the mistake or the tragedy. They went down the dark path. So Two-Face, for example, who had, depending on the telling, he had some psychological issues, or it was just simply the acid to the face or the burn to the face, whatever story you want to go through. But it's something that happened to him that turns him down this dark path. He faces some sort of tragedy and responds poorly to it. That's the fallen villain. Now, the fallen villains are useful to us because they are cautionary tales. They are stories about this is what not to do when you face a tragedy. And Two-Face is a great juxtaposition with Batman, for example, because Batman, a horrible tragedy, lost his parents at a young age. Instead of deciding that he was going to grow up to be a little nihilist and nothing means nothing because the cruel universe took his parents away from him, no, he decides he's going to dedicate the rest of his life to try to stop any other child from having to suffer that fate. To try and stop other people from having to suffer at the hands of villains like, Joe Chill, who killed his parents. So that's a positive. It's positive activism I've talked about. But you do need to see in these mythologies villains not respond positively and respond negatively, because that shows you the path not to take. It's the cautionary tale. The cautionary tales, though, do not work without the elemental evil. The elemental evil is absolutely necessary. It's just like the aspirational. It's actually aspirational hero. It's absolutely necessary, but no one gets it, and people think, "Oh, that's just kiddie stuff." We like the other ones because no. You can't have a cathartic motivational hero if you don't have the aspirational to strive toward. You can't have a fallen villain, because what are they fallen into? You need to define what evil is, and the elemental evil does that. Without an elemental evil, then you have moral relativism. And that is the biggest crock of bullshit ever. I'm sorry. If you want to go into my comments now and try and defend moral relativism, I'll just block you before reading your whole comment. And it's not bad because it's all relative, right? That's not rude of me because it's all relative. It's ridiculous. It's just the whole concept defeats itself anytime you try and talk about it. Moral relativism is nonsense. And you need these elemental evil forces in your mythologies to define that for you and help you get that out of your thoughts and your world experiences into a story where you can better understand it. And then the cautionary villains are the ones who are the fallen villains, are the ones who give us these cautionary tales about what happens if we do fall into that elemental evil. So we need both of them. Just like I talked about how it's a problem for mythology and society, culture in general, when you try to deconstruct our aspirational heroes, and you take the precious few that we have, some of the most popular that we have, Superman, for crying out loud. Zack Snyder just wanted to deconstruct the hell out of him. Just wanted to tear him apart. Let's see how he got there. You can't see how he's an aspirational hero. He doesn't need to suffer anything like that. That's just ridiculous. Complete and total misunderstanding of the character. The same thing is being done with villains. And Joker. The Joker is one of the most iconic elemental evil villains we have out there. As I said, you know that he had some sort of backstory to get him there, but you don't know what it is. You can't know what it is. All you need to know is that he's this face of elemental evil for us. He's this face of nihilistic chaos, whatever. That's what he is. And that works. And people are already trying to say, well, the movie, I understand that, some things are sort of suspect. Is that really true or not? So, it's his backstory, but you don't really know. Well, here's the problem. Here's why none of that works as a defense for this movie. I'll give you an example. Jim Lee actually came out recently. Jim Lee, for somebody who is been such a crucial part of so many iconic superhero stories in the past. It's mind-boggling to think of how little and how poorly he understands superheroes and who they are and what they do for society. He just completely doesn't get it. Either that or he's just shilling his ass off. Who knows? But he came out, with a tweet or whatever, talking about, oh, this movie's so great. It's gonna define the Joker moving forward. We're gonna have elements of that probably, I'm sure. And it's a wonderful, wonderful blah, blah, blah. It's perfectly in line with who the Joker is. And it'll serve as a wonderful, and here's what he says, cautionary tale. If your Joker is serving as a cautionary tale, then it's not the Joker that society has accepted and society has resonated with and responded to. You don't get it, Jim Lee. You do not understand it at all. Go back to drawing pretty pictures. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. You need both the elemental villains and the fallen villains. If you don't have both of them, then your mythology doesn't work. And now we're seeing a drive to deconstruct our elemental villains into fallen villains, just as we're seeing the same impetus to deconstruct our aspirational heroes into all cathartic motivational heroes. They can't be that. They can't be that. You lose any point of comparison. It just doesn't work. It falls apart. So that is the problem there. Now, I will continue these videos with doing some more sub-archetypes within these two, so you can have villains who are either elemental or the fallen, and then they can be some of the sub-archetypes. Like you can be a trickster elemental or a trickster fallen, villain. Those are the sub-archetypes that we get to. Same thing we did with the heroes, the frontiersmen and the heroines and stuff like that. So we'll continue that with these as I get to them. I will be back with a lot more writing videos too. Some probably getting into some more language, use of the actual written language videos as well. And back with the live streams and everything like that. Do check out my own graphic novel right now on Indiegogo, Tales from the Stacks. Will not be available very much longer, and I'm going to be launching the next campaign soon as well. So keep up with that. Add at the end of the video, link in the description, the top right hand, or end of the video as well. And until next time, keep enjoying and digging deeper into the hero and villain stories you love best. Thanks for watching. By now, chances are you've probably heard of and hopefully ordered your copy of my graphic novel, Tales from the Stacks. But in case this is the first you're hearing of it, it is still in demand on Indiegogo, but it will not be available forever. The in-demand store is closing down later this month as we prepare for fulfillment and for the new campaign for the new book launching in the fall. Tales from the Stacks is a collection of 3 of my uncanny suspense stories in the vein of The Twilight Zone, Tales from the Crypt, and such. They are introduced by a mysterious librarian who's welcomed you into the inner stacks of the library where they keep such tales. And it features interior art by an amazing collection of talent. Illustrator monk Dave T., the great Kyung Lee, and another artist I haven't even announced yet. And of course the variant covers are still available. Kyung Lee's famous cover, as well as John Malin's amazing work, colored by Kyle Ritter, and then the Dave T. Indiegogo exclusive as well. We have prints, t-shirts, bookmarks by Pablo Romero. So if you haven't checked out the campaign page, or if you haven't checked it out in a while, swing by and see if there's any new content you might have missed. Thanks for helping us reach so many of the stretch goals, and we'll see if we can't reach another one before it ends.